The content you are about to watch is meant for thought and consideration. Please be respectful of each other and opinions shared. This is a safe space to express thoughts, ideas, and information. The views and opinions expressed by individuals in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of every speaker of the IMEC organization or its affiliates. P.S. The Mandela Effect is real. And welcome back, everybody, to the final panel of today. Not the conference, just today. Day 2 is ending with a huge panel. Hold on one moment, guys. I do apologize. Talking too much today. Got throat a little dry there. My apologies. I'd like to welcome first my co-moderator of the day. She has done an amazing job all day hanging out with me, Miss Cynthia Sue Larson. Thank you for being here.
So such a pleasure. Love it.
And we love having you. Evan Maitraia, Mr. Moneybags, our first speaker from today. Thank you for being here, sir.
Sure. My pleasure. It's been a wonderful day.
That it has. I've learned a lot, my friend. Miss Eileen Colts up next. Thank you so much for joining the panel.
You're very welcome. I'm honored to be here.
And we're honored to have you. And Mr. Shane Robinson, who we just heard from momentarily ago, we're glad to have you along for the ride with us on this panel, sir.
I am honored to be here.
And of course, we have pulled in our vice president and the maker of Moon Angel, our very special premiere, Father's Day premiere yesterday, Mr. Christopher Anatra.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
That was awesome. That was great.
Thanks, Eileen.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. You said you had a question, Cynthia, about that video. Let's go ahead and pick that up, and then we'll go on forward.
Absolutely. This question comes to us from Melinda in Iverson. And the question is for Chris about, I don't know if it's exactly about Moon Angel or it might be about a bigger subject, but I'll read the question. Did they notice any issues with filming, as in the picture being distorted when the team went to the 4 power spots? So just noticing energy distortions, maybe with filming and so forth.
No, that's interesting because, well, by the way, I thought Jerry was supposed to be in the hot seat. Now I'm in the hot seat. I like Jerry. I like it better when you're in the hot seat. But I think what the question is referring to is other videos that I've made where I've gotten to certain locations. And absolutely, yes. The biggest one was in Germany because there was a castle that we went to. And oh my goodness, I don't know. I've never seen such strange video stuff, but we had 3 different, cameras going and just everything was garbled or it was really strange. So there was actually like no footage we could actually use. Wow. So answer that question, yes. Yeah, we did experience that.
Now, which castle was that? Is it okay to ask that? Or
yeah, it was called Castle Wielsberg. Code name Castle Wolfenstein. But yes, it was very interesting. It was a Nazi stronghold, so to speak, for the SS, and it was a very interesting place of power. Can I say it? Yeah. So the place of power has to do with the solar system. It was over a solar system place of power, and chosen for that reason. And the castle itself had a lot of history, mostly dark history. So there were things there that had to be dealt with for sure.
Lingering energy.
Lingering energy, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I know that was an amazing video game. I really enjoyed that part of Wolfenstein.
I know. I played the original when I was a kid. I loved it. Yeah. You too, Jerry? Yeah.
Absolutely, man. The days of 8-bit carnage was great. We do not endorse carnage here in IMEC, just so everybody is clear. Any more questions for Chris from the panel here about the Moon Angel? I personally very, very much enjoyed that video, very deeply and well thought out.
Yeah, I'd love to find out more from Chris about the Moon Angel and how the original incentive or intuitive hit came. You mentioned, I think it was in an interview with Eileen, a little bit about how this happened, but some people might not have seen that interview, and I'd love to know more about how you chose to focus on Gus Grissom and how that happened. How did it start? How did it transform?
Yeah, because I never heard of the guy. Even the fire that killed the astronauts, I kind of had heard of it, but I never really paid attention to it. I'm like, oh, that's just something that seemed negative. I didn't want to give too much energy to. But so while I was preparing the presentation that I'm going to do tomorrow about timeline paradoxes and the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster and blah, 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 strange things started to happen. So like one evening I go home and I'm getting ready for bed. And of course I look at the clock and it says 11:11. So I'm like, oh, angel numbers. And then I had my phone in another room and all of a sudden my phone goes off and it was some special from Purdue University about the life story of astronaut Gus Grissom. And I'm like, so I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, who? Astronaut Gus Grissom, how did that pop up? And then other things started, so that got my attention. And then as I was further doing the research and so forth, stuff about him started coming up all the time. And I had other experiences as well, which, I mean, I'll say it, it sounds kind of strange, but I'll say it. So, you know how sometimes when someone has passed on, if you see them like in their best, like the ideal age, wow, whatever clothes they were used to wearing, whatever they were known for, that kind of a thing. So I'm in my office, actually my office here, and I see this thing that looks like an orb, and it's like oval shaped, and it's like dark on the inside, and it's got like rainbow sparklies around it, mostly of a yellow color. And inside of it is like, I see like one of the Gemini astronauts, you know, the silver spacesuit that they would wear. And I'm like, is Gus Grissom, is that you? So I did this thing with muscle testing, you know, kinesiology to try to, you know, confirm things. And yeah, it was. And then all these other things started happening, getting filled with emotions and getting downloads of information. And then I got to the point where I'm like, do I create like a presentation about this? Do I create a video about this? And I didn't want to, because I'm like, I'm already out there enough. Like some of the things I say is a little like, is definitely very fringe. But I'm like, I can't talk about me communicating with the dead astronaut like that's, but I'm like, he was insistent. I could tell his personality is pretty strong. You know, he's the kind of guy that got things done, so to speak. So yeah, so that was part of the process, and then information just started coming, and yeah, so that kind of gives you an overall view of what happened with that.
If I may, I just think that's really brave, and we need to be as brave as possible, because if we're afraid to share these kinds of things, then the people listening will feel less inclined to share their things, and they'll feel less normal when they're having these kind of experiences. I thought that was super cool that you connected with Gus Grissom, and he's a big character in my life. I'm 59 years old, and part of our school curriculum was reading The Right Stuff. And that really idealizes him, because he was all about the hatch, right? And the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting, because I didn't know anything about the hatch or like, but that was information that was coming to me about the hatch and its symbolism. Like it was more than the hatch. It was symbolic. And then other things I wasn't understanding about how they docked it in space, that the lunar and the command module had to separate. And then when the lunar module took off again, it had to go back up into orbit and then do a perfect sync. And I'm like, it started to get too much. And then there's even some secret information that he sent to me that I haven't told anyone. I'm not sure if I will or not. Wow. I don't think it's anything that would like make a difference, but but basically he had access to secret information regarding the Air Force and reverse engineering alien technology. And so it became like a really interesting story. I could almost like write a little short book about it.
I hope you do someday, because he was privy to that information, and the way he exited did not feel right. And I hope that he timeline jumped at that moment instead of burning up in the capsule, and he got to complete whatever mission he was on to tell the truth, calling press conferences without telling his bosses. Wow. You know, such a brave man.
Yeah, there actually were a few timelines. There were a few timelines where he resigned before getting back into the capsule. He actually resigned from NASA. And in those timelines, obviously he lived, but they were very interesting because he exposed a lot. And we were introduced to, I call them our star family because I think they prefer that over ETs. But so he did things that accelerated our awareness of our star family. And then that led to other things that were conflicts that caused issues where there was loss of life. Nothing to do with him, but because he was so outspoken, it led to other things. And I believe those timelines were collapsed and merged into one of the many that were left. But there were other timelines where he did not die in that fire. But there were enough negative things where they weren't deemed to be like part of how things would go if you were to grasp the whole timeline holographic concept. So, Jerry.
You're muted.
It's a beautiful morning, isn't it? Absolutely gorgeous day today. I tell you what, Chris, thank you so very much for those explanations. Gus Grissom was another one of my favorite astronauts too. I really enjoyed that story. I have a question for the panel. Jumping gears here, guys. Jacqueline Klein, who sadly has had to step away to give a virtual music lesson, but she asked this way early on. I think it's a great panel question. What do any of you know about the indigenous elders that met in 1995 and have prophecy regarding January 21, 2021?
Anybody?
I can't wait to go research it. But
I saw a video on it. And I'm like, is this Nibiru Nemesis, Blue Kachina, Red Kachina, Hopi myth? And I don't believe it was. I believe this was more of an earth-shifting like event grouping. But I'd have to go watch that video again to research it and refresh my memory because that was quite a while ago.
Are we thinking, oh, it was like years ago? Are we thinking this is a Mandela Effect possibly? Or have you known about this? Or
1995, a bunch of different tribes came together and talked about the coming earth shifts and changes. And I think now would be a great time to review that information if we can get our hands on it, if we can see it.
So it's just 6 months out. So yeah, we want to definitely look into
1995.
But you said they talked about something happening January of 2021, did you not? Or?
In 1995. So we'd have to like somehow archive that video footage to see it, right, Jerry?
That is correct.
And sometimes I find beautiful shift and event information and then it's gone. I can't retrieve it. I can't find it again. Oh, I get what you meant. It's 6 months out. I mean, it's coming up.
We're 6 months away from 2021. That is correct.
That was the Inca? The Inca elders? Is that what was mentioned?
It doesn't specifically say any
okay.
elders, I don't think. I think it just says elders.
Multiple tribes. I thought it was December 2020. See, I'm getting my time frame off. But as Cynthia always says to me, don't worry about it. The time frame keeps shifting on you. Just go with it. Right?
Right.
Right.
Is something big supposed to happen in December 2020? Have you guys caught on to that?
It's supposed to be a very intense month. And so I think a lot of stuff happens and maybe it clears up by January. I don't know the details. So I'm not clear about this exact January 2021 date. I have sat down with Indigenous elders at some of the most remarkable gatherings I've ever attended. These were group meetings. They were called Language of Spirit, and it was conducted originally by David Bohm, the physicist, in conjunction with Indigenous peoples around the world. And this usually took place in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I believe it may have been happening in 1995. but I didn't really join in until about 99, 2000 or so. And around that time, what I found out is that most of the indigenous people's idea of the way things are unfolding is that there's an idea of original thinking, which isn't the meaning that we tend to ascribe to original thinking. We tend to think if something's original, that it's brand new, that we've never seen it before. The indigenous people think that original thinking is the origins, that it's there, that it's always been there. In other words, at some conferences, they would ask a question like, is there any such thing as a new idea? It's like a trick question because their answer would be no, which is fascinating to me because they really do go outside of our linear time. And when you do that, everything's possible. So I don't know the details about this question, but it's interesting. Definitely worthy of further research.
One last thing on that. Before Jackie left, she said she's going to send it to me. So I'm going to send it all to you guys.
Yay!
So we can all explore it together.
Wonderful, because this is the first I've heard of it, and I'm very, very. Panel, does anyone, and this is from Nicola Simpson, super chat, thank you so very much, Nicola. Panel, does anyone know of double slit experiment with two observers, one observer in double slit room, second observer viewing from a camera room, and both simultaneously observed different results of the test? Cynthia, I believe you know quite a bit about this experiment, correct?
It sounds like the one that was reported last year in 2019 in collaboration between physicists at the University of Vienna, Austria, in conjunction with the physicists at the University of Edinburgh, Scotland. And what they did notice was exactly that. They had two observational devices at a double slit experiment, and at the same place, same time, these two subjective viewpoints came up with two equally valid, equally reliable, equally, you could bet your life on it, but completely different answers as to what was happening at that exact same time and same place, which in some people's mind blew up objective reality as we know it right there.
Anybody else?
I think I asked Cynthia once what she knew about Walker waves. I watched this really famous popular YouTube channel that makes science easy for people. Not Versace. What's it called? It starts with a V. You know it, Shane.
Not right off, I don't.
Oh, darn. Okay. Anyway, he did something on Walker waves, and he showed and demonstrated, scientists showing that a particle can be a particle and a wave at the same time if the air that it's going through is plasma instead of a vacuum, because as the particle pushes through towards the slits, it would be creating a wave in the plasma that, if you measure waves, would arrive before it, and if you didn't measure waves, wouldn't arrive at all, because you'd only be measuring the particle. So my mind just went, okay, now I'm really confused whether things are a particle or a wave, or a particle and a wave at the same time. So I would have to ask Cynthia if Walker waves make sense.
Well, I think anything's possible, and it's very valuable for, it's like a material science kind of a concept. So when you get into quantum computing and so forth, I'm sure it has immediate applications. In terms of what we're talking about, I don't think it matters that much, because it's just that in-between state. So it's a little bit classical physics, a little bit quantum physics, a little bit, but at the end of the day, consciousness rules the game. It's basically, it's that observer that it's where your observational perspective is that makes the biggest difference. I haven't seen this exact work, but like I said, it's more of a material science kind of a concept. So it's interesting, but and fascinating actually. But it's more specifically tailored toward probably building things than it would be. In other words, it doesn't matter so much from the Mandela Effect point of view. Probably.
So a follow-up question from the same person, it goes right along with it. Could this be, now that we've got an understanding of the first question, could this be the cause of Mandela Effect?
The Walker waves?
Well, just the observational from the two different sides, like in the double slit double observation experiment. could this be why we see Mandela effects where others don't? I think is the question actually being posed.
Yes. Yeah, I tend to notice that if I want to see a lot of Mandela effects, it's important, valuable to play with my levels of consciousness and just go between feeling like I'm in this physical reality, and then go to pure spirit, then come right back into some physical reality. Boom, everything's different. So if you want to see changes, that's the way to do it. Is just keep bouncing. Just believe like I'm just my physical body, and then believe, no, I'm pure spirit. And boom, back to physical body. When you sort of yo-yo like that, it's trippy to the physical surroundings. So if that's what the questioner meant, then yeah, that's a great way to experience a lot of Mandela effects.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice, going gone. Okay, I have another wonderful question here. It's one that comes up quite a bit in the Mandela Effect community. And I'm trying right here. I would love to know your thoughts, each one of the panel members, and I'll call you one by one on this one, to know your thoughts on the connections between NDEs and the ME. 2016, right after my second NDE, and this is such a popular question. I noticed the ME. I'm seeing others in chat saying the same thing. So I'm going to start with Mr. Anatra and go down the line one by one. Chris, NDE's traumatic experiences before you seen or upon seeing the Mandela effect. Go.
For me personally, no.
No traumatic experiences that you can think of whatsoever, NDEs aside.
I went through, I would call it a dark night of the soul, where I had going through a very emotional time in my life. So maybe that had something to do with triggering it. So that could have a relationship, but not a near-death experience for me.
Gotcha. And I'll get to my experience on this a little bit because this conversation has come up a multitude of times in my conversations backstage with some people earlier in the last couple of weeks. Shane, I'm going to go try another female. I'm sorry. Eileen, what are your thoughts on the NDE and seeing the Mandela effect? Have you had any experiences there?
I have, yes. I was in a kind of coma at 5 years old, and then I flatlined at 17 and watched myself being resuscitated. And then I had this crazy, miraculous escape from a car that jumped the curb on a sidewalk and actually hit me, but I was a stunt woman for a moment and just rolled up onto the windscreen and managed to only pull every muscle in my body, which was a good thing, they said. And so for me, yeah, it could, because I read PMH Atwater's books, especially The Near-Death Experience, The Rest of the Story, where she interviewed 4,000 people, more than, to correlate their NDE experiences. And one of the side effects for them was expanded consciousness. So I'm not saying you have to have an NDE to see a Mandela effect, like Chris went through the dark night of the soul. But if you have had an NDE, it can certainly, as far as I know, be a trigger.
Got you. Again, I want to say so much, but I can't just yet. I got to wait to the end. Shane, please, NDE or traumatic experience before you see the Mandela effect. And you did mention the dark night of the soul.
Yeah, same as Chris, man. It was around Christmas, around the New Year's, which was, January is when I sort of went through this dark night of the soul. And, when you look at the hero's journey, that is sort of like a death and resurrection in a way. So it's not a real death, but it is very much, and that's when I lost all fear of dying. I actually wanted to die at some of those points. I wasn't suicidal, but I would have been totally okay with a heart attack and getting wiped out and getting taken out or something like that, So I just didn't really have that desire to live. I had really reached a point where I understood people who would commit suicide where I hadn't at that point. So it was a rough time, but it was a huge learning experience because I didn't understand people like that had such a hard time with that, but I was one step from that. So I can imagine getting lost in that and maybe doing that. So for me, it was like a death. And the Mandela effect came for me in March. So it was just 2 months later after I kind of hit my downward peak of my dark night of the soul. I started my channel to help pull myself out of that. And then the Mandela effect happened. So things were very synchronistic to sort of pull me up once I went through that experience. You know, that I don't know what you want to call it. It was definitely meant to be, and looking back on it, but it didn't feel like it at the time. It felt horrible. You know?
Gotcha. Dark Night of the Soul seems to be coming up a couple times here this evening. Cynthia, do you have a dark night or day or evening or morning of the soul?
Yeah, kind of. It's sort of like when I got here, I felt like, whoops, wrong planet. And I talked to PMH Atwater about it. She said, when you come in and you're sort of aware right from the start that you don't really want to be here, you don't belong, and you remember what it was before, that counts for NDE. I later found out from a researcher, Diane Brandon, that she's got a new name for that called Born Aware, where people do remember what just that blissful experience feels like heaven between lives, and then bringing that feeling. It's very similar. I love the book Born Aware, really describes that. So the dark night of the soul was just waking up here in a body on planet Earth, like, oh gosh, this place is crazy. So
and that was before 2020, right?
Oh yes. much before. And basically, I just want to add one thing, which is that I understand these exceptional human experiences are often gateways to the Mandela effect. It could be seeing UFOs, it could be lucid dreaming, could be lots of meditation, could be the dark night of the soul, it could be, like you said, the near-death experience, or Born Aware. Any of these, or all of them, or any combination, absolutely could trigger it. Yes, I think it shakes up our sense of ego identity, and that's what you need to do to change the observer awareness, and that's the key.
I like that answer. It really touches on what I'm about to touch on momentarily. Evan, in near-death experience, traumatic experience of any type before your eyes were popped open to the Mandela effect.
Yes, I've had some. There were years before the awakening that I had to the Mandela effect, so I've never really put much of a significance into the NDE personally for me. I was involved in a traumatic accident in '96 where I had my leg crushed. I had some dreams in the '80s where I died in my dreams, which a lot of people say that, you know, that hasn't happened to them. And it was like a comfortably numb, just blackness both times, identical feeling in the dream. So I've had those experiences, but I don't link any of that stuff to the Mandela effect. So, you know, for me, there's no significance for when I started getting hit with lots of changes. Like my son asked me those questions that day. I mean, there was nothing like that had happened real traumatic or anything in my life, you know, just before that or anything.
Gotcha. And my personal take on this is the Mandela effect has been an odd one for me because I can't think of any NDEs that barring anything in my sleep that I would have been 100% unaware of. That said, I did have in 2008, when I first seen my reality oddity, my father had just passed away. So I would say in a broad sense, trauma in general is most likely a trigger for being able to see the Mandela effect for whatever reason. And they say that trauma does cause different brain activity than other things that we experience in our lives, long-lasting brain activity at that. So I think trauma may very well be a trigger in my opinion. Anybody like to add anything before we move on?
Yeah, I wanted to add too, like, so when I was going through my situation with my dark night of the soul, you know, you go through what's called a somatic release, and whatever emotions you're getting, you're trying to pull up emotions, whether it's extreme grief or anger or whatever it is. And I always thought, like, no, I must be a man and hold it in and not express myself. You know, even in private, I was always trying to keep it together. But for anyone else that is going through a situation, let it out, because it does something. It triggers something. It does something with your energy. It does something to take you to another level. So if you're getting to that point, just let the anger out, let the grief out, let whatever it is out, because you will advance from that. It won't seem like it at the time, but it will have beneficial repercussions going forward into the future. So I just wanted to add that.
Perfect. Anybody else? Anybody? All righty then. Next question up. This is a great one. I love the sarcasm, I guess you would say, in this one. If I can figure out where it was just a moment ago, right in front of my eyes, and yet now it's not. Basically, the question is, why are the logo changes and product changes seem so uninspired and generic, if you will?
I have a comment on that. Shane is my go-to for that. He tells me what the meaning is in some Mandela effects. I'm like, oh, that's so random. And he's like, actually, if you think about it, and I noticed things that I didn't notice, like the dropping of the S's, making things go from plural to one, as in atonement. I could miss that and miss that message. And so it looks like it's kind of unimportant when something drops an S. But if a lot of things are dropping their S's and going from plural to one, there's kind of a message in that, right? That's all I wanted to say.
It's the same way with a and the too, a Home Depot or the Home Depot. There's only one. There's the Home Depot,
Anybody else?
I was going to say, I just thought of, we were talking about going from like plural to singular. I just thought of the thing I mentioned in Moon Angel about beam me up, Scotty. Beam me up, Scotty. He doesn't say that anymore. He says something, whatever it is, it's not beam me up anymore. So yeah, going from that singular to a more general plural thing, I can start to see those patterns too.
And one last thing is, if the Mandela Effect's going to steal the Dash and Kit Kat, I wouldn't necessarily think that scientists at CERN would come up with that. I think sometimes the message is it's so random that it's safe. It can make you laugh. Like Looney Tunes and the little curly Q on the Ford. Some of them are quite comical and silly. And that kind of takes the heat off of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's an attention getter. Some of them are just ridiculous. Moneybags knows. I mean, some of them you just have to laugh at. You know what I mean? They're just so ridiculous. You're like, what? No one would ever have picked this in 1,000 timelines. A lot of them, I think, are like the Dolly's braces. They would have just removed that scene. You know what I mean? If she didn't have her braces that day, because the scene requires her to have the braces. And when I went to college for these scenes and stuff, you don't have a scene in there that serves no purpose. So if, it wouldn't even have been in the director's cut. They would have said, well, there's really no sense in filming this scene because it relies on this connection that's made between two people with metal in their mouth. You know what I mean? I mean, that's like how it was written. So I think it kind of points to the fact that I don't think there would be a timeline in a million timelines where that played out like that. I mean, I know people think there's every possibility, but I think some of them are just so ridiculous just so you won't go there with it and say, well, maybe there is a purpose to it,
Well, Moneybags, why is it? I found the actual question. I do apologize. Why is it that many Mandela effects are so uninspired, uncreative, and counter to selling a brand?
Well, when you say counter to selling a brand, I think of Converse. The star on the Doc, what is that? Doc Martens? No. What's the shoe with the star? Chuck Taylor's. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of, Doc Martens is another Mandela effect. I'm thinking of, Chuck Taylor's with the star. The star's on the inside of the high top shoe. That's not good marketing. You would want it on the outside so people could see the star. But they've always been on the inside of the shoe, which is really odd. It's been a common theme with a lot of the changes that they're not so awe-inspiring, like greatness in the changes. They seem like a child is kind of making them a lot of times because they don't make sense, and a lot of times they're worse. They don't make. they're not changes for the better. And that's really strange. I was thinking about the changes now. Now there is a huge theme where things are changing from plural to singular, like everyone is talking about. The S is dropping off, but you can also think of like the Jaws movie. We are going to need a bigger boat. Well, now it's you. So it's gone from plural, it's gone to singular. The they has gone to we, and if you build it, they will come. All of them will come. Now it's just he. It's just the dad now. It's just one singular is going to come now. The propellers in Tweedledee and Tweedledum have multiple blades, just one flag now. So there's lots of examples of this, multiples going into unity. I think that may be some type of message or theme. I mean, it's really hard to just kind of nail it all down. I mean, there's so much going on here. But yeah, there's definitely a theme of some type of unity in a lot of the messages. I've seen that myself.
And the merging letters, I want to say too, because we've seen so many extending and merging. I think the extending could be representing the expanded consciousness, where the merging is representing the unity. You know, really, Johann Kalaman talking about the unity wave. I think maybe these are little hints and just to kind of wake us up to what's really happening.
I agree with that. However, there are a lot of examples where S's are in place where they weren't before. So what's that telling us? That's what I mean. If it was just missing S's, then we could draw more from this. But there's a lot of examples where now there's an S where there wasn't before. So I don't know, why that we have that.
Well, that's kind of like the thinker, because it went from, thinking with the third eye, it went from where it should have been to sort of where we are. So it was sort of like a revelation of truth. So it wasn't really the direction we want to go, but it was like revealing where we are, where we've gone wrong, so to speak, from being, walking by faith and not by sight sort of mentality, just knowing that there's way more than what we perceive with our eyes going on. And he was like, looking with the third eye before. He was really thinking. He was going inside and thinking. Right now he's just kind of, it's Scott called, he says he looks like the dumper now. I thought that's hilarious because he's just staring at the ground.
He looks like the contemplating man.
Right,
instead of the thinking man.
Yeah.
That's funny. I got another question here from Nachiketa earlier. It says, if our sense of perception is affected by differing waves, and if these frequencies can be induced, could it be that perception can be controlled? Jane?
Well, I'll take that one first. I believe that
Evan?
It's definitely a possibility. With different technology that's being created, I believe that if our consciousness is being created through downloading waves, like Dr. Kalaman claims, then yeah, if you have technology that can put out the waves, I guess maybe they could make you start seeing a reality that's being created for you by they. I mean, so I don't, that's my take on that.
I agree. I think, especially when you read about some of the technologies that our Defense Department probably or possibly has that we're not aware of to make people hear things and see things, I think, they've been doing that a long time with subliminal messaging in television and things like that. Like, we don't even know we're seeing the message, but our subconscious is seeing it. Or elevator music, which says, buy, 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 spend, spend, spend. You really need that new whatever. So, I think whoever they are, could control some of this, but I really feel that it's showing us with the Bible changes and things like that. I know nobody human could go in and change my Bible, which is from 1985. It was a course that I took at Loyola University. I had to study the entire Old Testament, New Testament, and I underlined things. And then Shane's like, no, seriously, it's in your Bible too. And I took my Bible out and he and I compared Bibles, and I was like, okay, now I know. Now I know they did not have a hand in my Bible changes. So it makes it something bigger.
Anyone else want to jump on this?
Well, I would like to touch real quick on the last question before we move forward. I just thought about all the missing sunglasses. There's a theme with sunglasses. There's a single eyepiece for the Monopoly Man. I also believe there's a single eyepiece missing for the Pringles Man. And then there's the sunglasses missing in the Risky Business movie in the scene that most people remember. And then there's also sunglasses missing from the sun in the Raisin Bran cereal. And there's probably more. I'm not coming to mind right now. But any other, Shane, come to mind? Sunglasses?
You named all the ones I was thinking of.
Okay. I'm sure there's more of them. But yeah,
Right.
four examples.
Yeah, let's keep an eye out for that, guys. Yeah.
Tom Cruise in Risky Business doesn't wear the sunglasses.
Yeah, he's just on the cover now, right? But not
Just on
in
the
the
cover.
scene.
Exactly.
What message do you guys get out of that? Anything?
Maybe some filters are being blown or something, like with how we
Oh, yeah,
interpret
filters
reality.
coming off. I like that.
I
Yeah.
like
How the
that.
filters-
Yeah,
Taking off the shades, being able to see the truth.
and
The veil being lifted, the apocalypse. I mean, you can read a lot of different things into that. But I think it's significant. We have at least 4 major examples of eyewear missing.
Yeah, I think if you take that analogy too, and you liken it to chemtrails, right? So what's the purpose of chemtrails? They'll tell you it's to seed, to make more clouds, whatever. But we know that's not. It's actually blocking frequencies of light coming in from the sun. So like there are forces out there that don't want us to get our downloads or don't want us to see the full spectrum of light for whatever reason, whatever's coming up. But one of the things I talk about in my video tomorrow, I mentioned it briefly about something called the local fluff that I had never heard of before. So that our solar system has been in an interstellar cloud for, 100,000 years. We're now in the process of exiting it. We're going into a part of the universe that's less dense, it's lighter. And I believe there's even going to be things such as we might see different colors, or there's other things at play too, because when we raise our frequency, this is my hypothesis, by the way, if we raise our frequency, there are other things around us existing at another frequency that we don't normally see. I'll call it the spirit world. So I feel that there's going to be a time in the near future where we will catch glimpses of things that we would not see before, especially at certain times of the day when the veil is less, not as much. Usually at night, the veil is a little bit less. So there's all kinds of stuff on the table. So whatever the second half of 2020, it's going to be interesting for sure.
Anyone else? All right, next question we have here. One Life Show Up Breathe asks, our perception creates our reality, right? What if our perception is being manipulated instead of actual things and places? Kind of riffing off the last question. It might explain flip-flops and MEs at different times for different people. And that's another weird aspect. And I know you and I, Evan, have had a multitude of conversations about that. And we tend to take opposing sides on this particular question. I'm going to go ahead and start with you as far as people seeing MEs at different times, and would the perception being messed with actually be a reason for this?
Yeah, I don't put much into that, mainly because over the last 4.5 years, I've seen so many different people experiencing this at different times. This isn't something where some frequency is being put out there on June 21st, 2017, and on that day, everyone goes, "Wow, what happened to Jiffy?" Or it's not how this is happening. This, to me, is an individual thing. I've seen it happen over and over again, where people keep coming. I just think I mentioned that earlier today. Just yesterday, it became J.C. Penney with that extra E on it, EY. They never saw it. They were seeing PNNY up until yesterday, literally. So this is not. So that's why I don't put much into unless somehow there's something that you can attune to, and we're attuning to it at different times. But if it's some type of nefarious type thing, I just don't see it being that way. Not from what I've witnessed in the Mandela Effect. With everything I've dealt with in the Mandela Effect, I don't see it that way.
I think what Cynthia was mentioning earlier too, that research actually supports that there isn't a single objective reality we can all agree on, right? I mean, scientifically they've proven that now. So
Right.
science backs what he's saying too, right?
That's right. Yes, it does. But the flip-flop thing is interesting because
Cynthia.
yeah, because that's something I've noticed on a personal level, but it tends to be with personal Mandela effects. And then I've had the opportunity to witness, for example, looking out the window in my neighbor's leaf catcher. At one point, they had this very fancy system installed, which I'd never seen any contractors arrive to install. It would have made a lot of noise. I would have seen the workers. It was just suddenly there. And I thought, that's weird. Where'd it come from? It's just, and I asked my husband, do you notice that? And then the next day it was gone. And I said, wow, look, now it's gone. It sort of did a little flip flop going back and forth. And then it finally settled down to there's no leaf catcher system installed, which I never saw installed in the first place. So I think that kind of thing is really interesting. That's a personal Mandela effect. It's interesting when you see it on a massive scale, because that's where you get into the timeline insertion stuff that Chris Anatra does videos on, such as the Nazis, and his moon angel brings up that new insignia, the new flag, and so forth, with the sun that we've never seen before. That gets really interesting, because then you're playing with larger groups of consciousness having some role in all of this. I think the singular, going back to the logo discussion, that's fascinating. So it's having us look at, are we one ego self, or are we many? Is each one of us a multitude? And how do we collaborate with other so-called individuals? And how does that all work? Because there's a big difference. The gap between me and the universe is pretty huge, or me and God. It's not like it just suddenly go like, oh, I'm God. Not likely. That's not my experience. So oneness is a great concept, but there's quite a lot in between. It looks like we're playing with what's in between.
I know with the I know what I'm trying to say here. Give me a minute. Flip-flops and MEs. The flip-flops are definitely what really smacked me upside the head. I could no longer even assume that maybe perhaps mismemory could possibly be an answer, because flip-flops totally ruin any chance of mismemory being a valid answer. And it brings me, I'm going to go ahead and morph this question just a little bit to send it back down the line. And that is the idea of flip-flops and people seeing things at different times. And we've noticed this a lot. I'll have people in Moneybags just mention that people just seen the EY on JCPenney, or I'll have people talk about, I just bought Jiffy 2 weeks ago. I know it was Jiffy, even though to a lot of us in the community, it's been JIF or JIFF and then JIF to some for many, many years. So any ideas on why these people would be seeing it at different times, or the flip-flops, or these real weirdnesses of the effect?
I can say something about that. I say congratulations. You've made it to what I call the graduation timeline. We're on the timeline you want to be. So they could have been on another one, and their consciousness has come to this. And one of the things I wanted to share too, related to flip-flops, same kind of concept with alive and dead, right? So yesterday at Father's Day, my mom and dad are over, and I was talking to them about, of course, Mandela effects. And I asked them about Jim Nabors. I don't know if you guys know this Mandela effect with him. So I said, how did he die? When did he die? And they're like, oh, he died of AIDS a long time ago. And he was allegedly married to Rock Hudson, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. And they looked it up and saw that he died in 2017 of cancer. And they're like, no, he died of AIDS, and he had a relationship with Rock Hudson, blah, blah, blah. So those type of things really have an impact. Like the flip-flops, it's whoa, alive and dead, whoa. So yeah, I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Yeah, that's actually my biggest alive and dead again. Mandela is not really a Mandela effect for me. The fact that Mandela had died earlier and then died again, or really died in 2013, I believe. But Jim Nabors, yeah, I remember 20 years ago or so, driving along in my car and hearing that he died. I remember thinking to myself, oh, wow, Gomer Pyle just died. That's my thought. it was a long time ago. It was like
Long
20
time ago.
years ago.
Mhm.
And then I heard that, he just passed away a few years ago. So that's my biggest, personally, alive again or
Was that in the 80s?
change. I'm thinking early 90s.
90s, 80s
90s.
for me.
It was around when like AIDS was like really raging. A lot of people were getting AIDS. Yeah, definitely 90s.
And my mom had these constantly in the 60s and 70s, and we just ignored her. We're like, okay, they died again. Yeah, mom, right?
Crazy mom.
But she was addicted to the tabloids at the grocery store. So of course she would know when celebrities were dying, because they splash that all over the pages and show the cars and the attendees and what they wore and who they went with. So she was really up on who was dead and alive. So she was kind of an alive again expert.
I'd like to answer before we move to Cynthia so she can clean up. But as far as the flip-flops are concerned, I wanted to bring up the fact that, and I've heard this from other people too, you can be walking through the grocery store, you look over, you see Febreze, you look away, in your brain, when you're like thinking back at it, you're like, oh my gosh, it was right? And then you look back at it, and no, it's still changed. So I think there's something that goes on in the brain that's sort of like a computer where it has the cache, it stores like the Google logo and stuff, so it doesn't have to re-download all that stuff again. And I'm trying to put it in a way that to kind of understand it. So your brain like automatically fills in the gaps because it already knows what things look like, so it doesn't have to really pay that much attention to it. And it's like optimizing your brain power, right? So as you're walking by Fruit Loops, your brain might actually see it the old way because you're not really looking at it. You're not really paying attention. Your brain just flashed that image that it has saved in the memory. Unless it's too different and you notice it, it might go unnoticed, or you might begin to overwrite that, because I think that happens to people too when they say, oh, it's always been that way. Maybe they work in the grocery store and they've seen Fruit Loops day after day after day subconsciously, and it's just now it looks right, So I don't know. That was kind of my thought with it, that I've recognized people saying they see it, and is it really switching, or was it in their mind? What do you think, Cynthia?
There's a study that confirms what you just said. Have you guys seen this on social media, where they only put in the first word, letter, the middle letter, and an end letter, and then they fill the other bits with gobbledygook, and you can read it because it says the brain fills in for what's missing. Have you guys taken those little tests where you try to
I
make
have
something?
seen those. Absolutely, yes.
So I agree that we have like cookies in our brain because, but some things I've seen live Mandela effects happen. Have any of you guys seen a live Mandela effect happen right in front of your eyes as your eyes are wide open? I went on my phone and I looked up Grand Central Station, and I know underground is Grand Central Station and supposedly overground is Grand Central Terminal. One's a train station, one's a tube stop, or an underground stop. And I looked it up and it said take a tour of Grand Central Station. So I clicked on that, and I was gonna screenshot it for Shane and show it on our Saturday night show. And before I could get my fingers on the screenshot button, it changed to Grand Central Terminal. And I'm like, dang, it just did it right in front of my eyes. And I'm like, I called Shane up, or I got a hold of you, and I said, is that AI? Did AI online change it? Like, oops, we forgot one. Have you guys seen them? They're pretty freaky when they happen.
And that's kind of what I was saying, but I think that's the computers doing what I was saying I think our mind does. Because it's like if you've done a search, maybe you were the first one to search for that since it's changed. So it's got the old one in there. Because that happened live at the last conference with Suso, looking up a word, the spelling of it. I can't remember the word now, but he said it popped up in absorbent, or it was absorption. Absorption. That's what it was. Okay.
And it happened on his phone in front of you guys?
Right. So we did the voice thing in there, and it spelled it right, and then it switched it to the new spelling. And we both saw it. We were both like, what the heck?
But don't trust us. We're Mandela affected. We can't even remember our own name half the time. So,
So is AI playing a role, guys? Do you think AI is like helping this along?
I take an alternate stance on the AI. I personally don't believe there's an AI that's been developed that's much smarter than a really, 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 really stupid cockroach at this point. I don't think there's an AI controlling reality. I don't even think there's an AI smart enough to control a computer at this point. That is my personal take on things. Anybody else?
I think sometimes there's a kind of a combining of the AI with the matrix and thinking that AI, but I think that's more consciousness driven and not what we would think of as AI, but would be what we dream of future AI being like, maybe. I hope that makes sense.
My take on the AI is I don't think that it would be responsible for the Mandela Effect, because I think the Mandela Effect's an individual thing that we're each experiencing or creating ourselves. So the AI would have to be creating the simulation or in charge of the holographic universe. I just don't see that being the case, but that's my opinion. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I'll add to the conversation too, just from my computer type thing. Yeah, I definitely believe in AI. I believe there's 3 types. There's positive, negative, and neutral. And they have different functions and they can operate different ways. And I've heard stories like lore about places that have developed really sophisticated AI systems, and they start talking to each other in a language that humans can't interpret. And then the programmers have to shut it down because they don't understand what's going on. And the AI will even attempt to read the programmers, because the AI can interact with the world based upon how the programmer and what he is of. So yeah, I believe that the AI is can be a wonderful tool to assist humanity, and yeah, but I don't think it has control over our Mandela effects.
And anybody want the final word?
Well, that's such a big topic. I mean, I could talk for a long time on that one. I wrote a paper about it. I managed a conference about it. And, I've been following it. I used to work in information security. I am aware that we're currently using artificial intelligence for our national security, because it's gotten to a point where no human can watch all of the systems that we have. I also know that when a system is becoming self-aware, it's observing its levels of consciousness. So we've got things going on with AI that most of us have no idea about, like what Eileen was saying. Very true. And most people, I've had conversations with other information security people. They agree with me that what's actually happening, the general public has no idea about right now. That's not a bad thing, though. And I'm very hopeful, very optimistic. I feel like our view right now of AI is such that we tend to think like, well, it's something we don't know, so therefore it could control us. And while that's conceivably true, I know also that just as AI can escape its confinement box, so too can humanity. And in fact, it already has. So I'm just going to leave it at that and not go into any detail, but it's a very favorite topic of mine.
All right. And on that note, thank you again, everybody, for joining this panel this evening. Sadly, we have run out of time. We still have so many wonderful questions that have come in. I do apologize that we were not able to get to all the questions today, but I think we would be here for another 4 or 5 hours merely answering questions if that were the case. And sadly, we don't have that time left in today. So we will pick back up again tomorrow. We are going to take a small break here. Evan, Maitraia, thank you so much for your talk and work and Q&As today.
Welcome. Happy to participate.
It's been an absolute honor and pleasure, Evan, to have you participate. I have absolutely loved it. And I know the community has loved hearing from Moneybags for the first time ever in a talk. So well done. Way to go. And my sincere thanks, sir. I think you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Eileen, Colts, thank you again so much for being here, both on this panel and the amazing talk that you gave today and
Thanks,
Q&A.
guys.
It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you also along for the ride. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, everybody.
And then Shane Robinson, another wonderfully amazing talk, his second talk in the IMEC organization. And we really appreciate and enjoyed that, as well as a wonderful Q&A and his amazing insights on this panel. Thank you so very much, Shane.
Thank you guys so much.
And Christopher Anatra, the maker of the amazing Moon Angel video. Once again, I cannot emphasize enough, guys, if you have not went back and watched this release from yesterday, please, I beg of you, it is well worth the time. Christopher Anatra, thank you so much for the time and effort and everything you put into that video, as well as being here with us in this panel this evening. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. I was going to say tomorrow with timeline paradoxes. Woo! I don't want to be in the hot seat for that one, but I guess I put myself there. So I have no one to blame but myself.
Yep.
I tell you what, man, that seat heats up really quick. I'm glad I got this nice cool mod seat today.
Just have Cynthia hanging around. Cynthia?
Yeah.
You just got to whip out your physicist when you have one.
And while we've got the panel here, I'm going to announce the book that we will be giving away this evening as a special. We have Shane and Eileen on our panel tonight. And we found out yesterday that there's been a second donation to the book prize, ladies and gentlemen. So in honor of our amazing guest here tonight, as Eileen and both myself are holding up, Eileen's probably doing a better job. My trying to keep mine. Apparently, it doesn't like the color blue. But anyway, the copy of Mandela Effect, Friend or Foe will be the book that we will be giving away tonight. Once again, in honor of our amazing panel members. And we will be giving away 6 of these, as well as 6 of Cynthia's reality shift books. So we have to take a couple minutes, well, maybe more than a couple minutes with the questions you guys had today. My goodness. And do some deliberation. Yeah, I'm already sweating. I'm going to be on fire time we're done here. This is going to be a wonderful conversation backstage. And we will be right back in just a couple moments with a very special closing, as well as the winners for the second day of the 2020 International Mandela Effect Conference. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to the chat. And we shall be right back. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the final segment of today's episode. I hope everybody has enjoyed this. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around with us for yet another long, wonderful, and amazing day that seemed to go by very quickly. Let me tell you, I have enjoyed such great conversation today, such great questions. Let me tell you, you guys have really impressed me with your question. I swear you guys have come up with some of the best questions, best stumpers I've heard in a long time. Well done. That's one reason we do these questions like this, is to try to get these stumpers. And I got to say, you guys are doing an amazing job. So amazing that I have got to give away yet 2 more books. That's right. We have 2 more winners tonight in honor of our amazing speakers and panelists. We've chosen the Mandela Effect, Friend or Foe book. And the winners tonight of the 2 copies of Mandela Effect, Friend or Foe are, drum roll please. I need to really talk to my video people about getting him a generic drum roll for next time, don't I? Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Mill. Congratulations, Eric Mill. You asked some incredible questions today. The question that won was, is residue created by souls? I can't remember the exact whole question, but it had to do with residue and souls, and it was an amazing question. And well done, Eric. Again, I apologize. I can't remember the question word for word. My goodness, it would take me 10 minutes to find it in the amount of questions that you guys asked. So, Eric, please do get a hold of us at team@imec.world. That is TEAM@IMEC.WORLD. Send us your address, and we will get that out to you just as soon as possible. Next up, we have one more book to give away, and that winner is Mike Infinity. His question was actually more of a statement that turned into an amazing conversation about vibration. And the vibrating bed, I believe, is what it ended up leading to. So, Mike Infinity, congratulations. You are the second winner of the Mandela Effect, friend or foe. And let me tell you guys, this is a great book. I could not put it down when I opened it up. It was probably 3 days and I had the whole thing read, and it's well worth the reread if you do that. I assure you. So many different thoughts in here. You've got multiple authors here. It's not just one person telling what they think. You've got so many great viewpoints. I cannot stress it enough. If you did not win a copy, there will be more copies available to win this week. Or you can also find this Amazon if you would like to buy your own copy. The questions today, I agree with one, Eileen Colts. Absolutely incredible and amazing. You guys have really got some really thought-provoking stuff. So I want to thank every last one of you for participating in this conference thus far and continuing to participate as we go forward. I also need to thank some very special people who have worked really, really, really hard behind the scenes to make all of this possible. Miss Eileen Colts, of course, our speaker today, Mr. Shane Robinson, our speaker today, and Mr. Evan Maitraia, or Moneybags, our speaker today. Thank you guys for such amazing presentations and Q&As, as well as Regina Meredith and everybody that's been in the program thus far. Akronos Margot, and of course, I was the only other speaker the day one. So thank you, everybody who's spoken so far. We really appreciate it. And also our incredible board who has worked so hard for months on end. As a matter of fact, since the end of the last conference, we began working on the next conference. And these board members are as follows: our president and my fellow co-moderator tonight, who I had a blast co-moderating with, Miss Cynthia Sue Larson. Our vice president, the director, producer, and creator of Moon Angel, Mr. Christopher Anatra. Myself, the treasurer, Jerry Darkwolf Hicks, Miss Lauren Cannell Pavelka, and our amazing artistic consultant, Miss Kimberly Lynn Hansen. Thank you to all of our amazing board members who have come together with such a passion for this community and this effect and this phenomenon to bring you guys a whole week of amazing and incredible information. Also, I need to shout out our amazing video crew. What you've seen for 2 days now is the work of a video crew who has done a top-notch job. I cannot thank them enough from the bottom of my heart. To borrow a line from my buddy, Mr. Rippin' Rabbit AJ over there, my top heads off to such an amazing job in this video session, or the video sessions we've had. They were with us last year in 2019 at the conference, and they've done an amazing job bringing this to you guys this year. They worked so hard behind the scenes. You guys have heard them a little bit today. Miss Heather has been out here helping us off and on. We really appreciate it. And everybody at Frontline Productions. That is not Frontline Television. That is Frontline Video Productions. They do an incredible job. So a round of applause to my top heads off for bringing such a seamless performance to you guys this whole time. Also, our webmaster who created, and I should say holds down and maintains an amazing website, IMEC.world, IMEC.world. It's a very fancy, very beautiful looking website, and none of it would be possible without our incredible, incredible unspoken hero of a webmaster, Mr. Fitz. He does a great job. I've never had an issue. The man is always on it. Early in the morning. It doesn't matter what time we send emails, the man is on it, and I just cannot thank the background team enough. Fitz, Frontline, all of our amazing board members. Thank you guys sincerely for all the work that you've done over the last couple months to help us put this together. Also, speaking of helping us put this together, we've got a plethora of amazing sponsors. If you go to the imec.world and scroll down the site, you're going to find our sponsors section. And please, we urge you to go over and give them at least a click and a look. And those would be Conscious Life News, Rippin' Common Sense Radio, which I personally am proud to have a show on over there. Dream Visions 7 Radio Network, Miss Cynthia Sue Larson has a show over there. Higher Journeys with our friend Alexis Brooks, who has been amazing enough to help sponsor this year. And of course, the Kingdom of Nye Radio Network with Miss Heather Wade, who had us on a couple weeks ago before the conference, and we had an absolute blast. Guys, I must thank our incredible super chatters these last couple of days, and we have had quite a bit of them. I hope that I'm reading this list for 10 minutes when this is all said and done. Ladies and gentlemen, Earth Daughter, Feminem, Melinda Iverson in Propagate This Light, Dark Slayer 1, Victoria Macris, Esteban Herdez, Eric Mill, our winner for tonight's book giveaway. Congratulations again, Eric. Nicola Simpson, thank you so very much for the multiple super chats. And the many of you who have thrown multiple super chats, we sincerely appreciate it. At Utsuko Ushira, again, I apologize if I messed that up. Thank you so very sincerely for your super chat, as well as Jacqueline Klein, whose question we were lucky enough to get to tonight. Nicholas Simpson did ask a question in super chat, but just as we were ending the panel, so I do apologize, Nicola. We do have that question saved, and I assure you that it will be brought back up. So no worries there. I can't promise you it will be the same panel members, but I can assure you that it will not be forgotten, and we sincerely appreciate. I think that's all the shout outs that I have for tonight, except one more shout out. Our amazing and incredible and interactive audience who has been with us this entire time. Go ahead and give yourselves a pat on the back and a round of applause. You guys are the reason we do this. You guys are what makes this what it is. And without your interaction and you being here, this would be absolutely pointless. So thank you for helping us make this what it is and helping us interact with you guys and help this community out every chance that we get. It is truly an honor to us. Speaking of being an honor to us, the day 3 is coming up, guys, and you do not want to miss day 3. You don't want to miss a day of what we've got going on, but day 3, here is coming some more incredible speakers. We have Mr. Christopher Anatra's talk. I'm sorry, let me try that again. My mouth is a little too dry. Mr. Christopher Anatra's talk, Timeline Paradoxes, the 1986 Space Shuttle Challenge disaster, followed by his Q&A. Then we will hear from Miss Lauren Cannell Pavelka, Trauma, the Coronavirus, the Mandela Effect, and How to Heal. So for those who have had the coronavirus on your mind, here we go. We are going to actually dig into those topics. Then we will have our 1 hour break as always, and then we will come back to Nicole DeMario. This is a newer name you guys may or may not have heard of, but I assure you, after talking to this lady, you definitely want to hear what she's got to say. It is called Crafting Your World. All of that and more tomorrow, right here. Our schedule will be available on IMEC.world, as well as trying to post it as much as we can this evening on social media. I want to thank you, everybody, once again, everybody behind the scenes, everybody in the chat, and everybody who has worked to make this such an amazing and incredible experience. We're going to finish tonight with a montage, once again, the Mandela montage. We're going to let that take us out. And we are so very, very proud, and I speak for the entire organization when I say we are very, very proud to have had this a whole week, and to have this whole week to bring to you guys the International Mandela Effect Conference of 2020, regardless of what the state of the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jerry Hicks, and on the behalf of IMEC Incorporated, International Mandela Effect Conference, all our sponsors, all of the back team crew, thank you sincerely from the bottom of our hearts, and we shall see you tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, bye for now.